Everything we know, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Simulationist podcast. This is the 198th iteration of the show, recorded on the 21st of June, 2016.
Just after the solstice.
Yeah, we just missed it. Yesterday was the solstice. I am Josh Trelevin, this first voice that you are hearing. The second voice you're about to hear is...
High Druid Ryan Kirkby.
And now you're the self-appointed High Druid.
For this room, yes, I am the High Druid of this room.
Okay, I was gonna, we might have Druid listeners. Who might...
I do not wish to alarm or offend, but...
You're taking over their organization?
Only for the purposes of this room.
Okay. If our listeners are druids, please write in to the show.
Yeah, if I ticked you off, write in, I'll send word back and apologize.
Or, maybe you want to offer us an actual high druidship.
If you know, a circle of stones that has some sort of, chrono significance, especially when it comes to the solstice, you could share that information with us. I wouldn't spill the beans, would you, Josh? Some of those areas
sure.
Some of those areas are kept nicely secret.
How do you say sure no?
I would hold it in the highest regards. That's how I say it.
Certainly not. Certainly would not break that trust.
Yeah. Because that's the thing is, the solstice is it's something everyone tries to at least acknowledge because it does bear some relevance to our lives.
Yep.
The solstice and equinoxes. Sort of thing as, it's like, oh boy, we're finally getting into the longer days, thank you, winter, equinox. And so, even in this, world where we really don't look up at the sky as often as we should, the solstice and the equinox does still impact us, on at least a casual level.
Yeah, well, on a very practical level, it is the longest day. So if you are into things that require daylight...
So if yesterday felt like a very long day for you, it actually was the longest day possible for you.
It was a Monday, too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Although our listeners are probably getting this on Wednesday or later, so... yeah.
Although, the longest day thing only applies to us, in the northern hemisphere, it does mean it was the shortest day of the year for the southern hemisphere people.
That's true.
Yeah. Which is good, because, apparently there's a person in need of airlift. No, actually, wait, that happened just a couple days ago. In Antarctica. Down in Antarctic, it's their winter. So, Yeah, pretty bad winter.
Permanent darkness, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was, one of those people that, signed contracts and all that. Oh, no, they haven't said what it is. I'm going to just say appendectomy required. Because whatever it is, he needed to be, airlifted to safety.
He was in an Antarctic base.
Yeah,
and got
one of those research bases, and got so sick he required an airlift. And so they actually sent 2 Canadian planes especially meant for hazardous and dark, ill-lit conditions there. Mm-hmm. And I remember, it was just after the last podcast I heard the news on it, but it would have taken until Sunday just for the darn helicopters to make their way to the other side of the planet to do the airlift. So I imagine they would have gone down the Rockies, Central America, and then the Andes sort of thing. Because, what other flight route would a helicopter take to make its way to the Antarctic Circle, right?
I guess so. And I didn't think that helicopters flew that long range, although I guess, why not?
Frequently, fuel stops for thing, and you just keep on going.
Well, my thought immediately would that they would pack it in a cargo plane.
Isn't that fuel inefficient, though? Let's put this flying machine inside a larger flying machine and then fly the larger flying machine there?
I guess I always thought that helicopters were inefficient themselves, but I actually have no idea, so...
I don't know. I figure if you're going to be sending it through this hazardous... they only really needed one helicopter, but just in case something went wrong, they did have a backup helicopter, because that's smart, right?
Yeah.
It's not like there's a lot of options when you're down there. It's like, oh, geez, sorry, your helicopter crashed. We'll get another one out to you in a week. 7 days or the transport's free.
Yeah, and I guess, there's different sizes of helicopters. Some helicopters are very large, so yeah, you couldn't fit a very large helicopter in a plane.
Huge plane. You need a pretty darn big one.
Yeah.
I don't know the method of how they got down there. That's just how I imagine they'd do it, Although I suppose if you get a really fast large plane to do the whole thing, it would probably be more time efficient to pack them up and send them down.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I could look it up.
What's the thing is, I never heard very much of
yeah.
the story. When it seems like the more you think about it, the more it becomes a very fascinating story from the logistics, and life-saving angles. And I haven't even heard what happened to the poor guy. I assume, because they didn't say, someone died in Antarctica for the news story in the last couple of days. Everything went according to plan. Yay! In this case, no news is good news.
I suppose.
Right?
Yeah.
So yay! Long story short, we got through the longest day of the year. Down in the southern hemisphere, you guys got through the shortest day of the year, and now we're all going to equinox balance.
Back, yeah, the balance will be restored.
That's the thing is, maybe it's just my personal perspective, but I always see the equinox as being the right part, because then it would be everyone, everywhere gets equal amounts. It's very justice-like in that way.
Okay, yeah.
Everywhere on Earth, everyone gets the same amount of light and darkness. Welcome to the equinox. Whereas the solstices are very uneven. It's very, greedy. It's like, look at all the sun these guys are having. We're sitting down here in the southern hemisphere, miserable and cold. Ugh. Of course, mind you, it all goes to pot, and the closer you get towards the equator, as everything becomes a more, like one season sort of thing. I mean, you get your monsoon season, but otherwise there's not really a winter season there.
Yeah, well, it depends what country you're into. There are some countries on the equator that literally are the same all year round.
Well, that's the thing is, the Philippines is technically in the northern hemisphere. It's just above the equator.
Yeah.
But it's not like they have to really worry about, we're hitting, the winter here in the Philippines. Let's get the snowblowers out.
Yeah.
So it's not like they have, the same worries that we do, even though they are in the same hemisphere as us.
Yeah, but some of those countries will have rainy season.
Yeah. They got a monsoon season that makes the people over in Alberta, look a little happier at their own bad weather. They've been getting a monsoon season in Alberta for the last couple of years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, the people of High River kind of should have seen it coming. The name of the town is High River. It would be like if you move to a town called It'll Flood You Out eventually. And then being surprised that you eventually got flooded out at one point.
Yeah.
So there's that. But, we do have some other bits of news and a conspiracy theory this week.
No.
Or at least yeah. Well, so it's conspiracy stuff isn't done, as malice. It's done for fun, as an analysis of how to build a conspiracy and make it seem believable.
Yes, okay.
It's not to be taken seriously by anybody, unless you want to try and take it seriously. I'm not going to tell you yes or no on that. The real bit news is 2016 has almost claimed another person. This week, Meatloaf collapsed on stage during a performance due to apparently some severe dehydration effects. And that's the thing, it's everyone's been going 2016, you're killing everyone's celebrity and everyone's getting sick. And I won't lie, I think I've gotten more minor bugs this year than I've gotten for moderate and major bugs in any two previous years.
Oh, so yeah.
It's just been another little round of cough. Nothing too bad for most of it, but it's you have a sore throat this week. Do you think you could do an extra 20% of work hours this week? Talking to people as a general habit? And I'm well, I guess so. I need the money. The paycheck will look nice that way.
So perhaps the angels of plague and death are especially awake this year.
Well, let's just say 2 of the 4 horsemen are not sitting idle. And if you're looking over towards Syria, there's a 3rd that's very active.
And that's war.
Yeah.
And also, famine is... There's always a famine somewhere.
There's always a famine somewhere, but it's not especially prevalent this year, except for the Vancouver Island marmots. An endangered species where half of them did not wake up this year.
Oh, really?
Well, that's the thing is, the thing about the Vancouver Island marmot is that they're an unusual species because they don't hibernate for just a few weeks at a time, as even small creatures only hibernate for short periods of time. Bears don't actually hibernate. It's more of a carnivore lethargy. Their body temperature doesn't actually drop down to qualify as proper hibernation.
Okay.
But the Vancouver Island marmot drops down for months, up to 7 months at a time. And so about half of them did not apparently wake up in several of their areas this year, because although this would apply back to last year, the early spring and the prolonged drought we had on the island last year meant for famine-like conditions.
They just didn't have enough calories when they went to sleep to last till they woke up.
They effectively fell asleep and starved to death. Yeah.
You know, actually, I kind of wouldn't mind that if that was the way that we died. That sounds fine.
Fell asleep and then starved to death?
You just don't wake up.
Well, they did have a thing on Saturday Night Live back in the day with Chris Farley, where they had like a cough and cold medicine, where it was basically a garbage pail. It's got him chugging a garbage pail of like NyQuil. It was just colored water. He wasn't actually chugging NyQuil, despite his penchant for doing substances.
Okay.
And the thing is that it gets into your system, and it's like throughout the course of the winter, you may suffer the cold, and many colds, but you won't really suffer it because you'll be asleep the entire time. And it's basically a hibernation. It's like you fall asleep for like 4 months, then you wake up, and then it's got I think it was another actor, it was a skinnier actor, and with a big long beard, waking up in the spring, all nice and fresh. Goes down, oh hi kids, like yay, it's been so long, sort of thing. In which case, it's like, well, there's a connection between both hibernation as well as getting rid of the concept of diseases and throughout the year, right? Oof. But yes, getting back to the main topic, Meatloaf collapsed on stage. Hopefully he'll make a full recovery, but this is kind of like a semi-conspiracy thing, because I do not believe people are dying in any greater amount this year than any other real year.
Okay.
I do believe, however, the celebrities that are dying this year are much more commonly known, and I think it's just like a statistical quirk. Celebrities are dying all the time. There's enough people, to be famous that, for at least for some groups, that it's bound to happen. No one lives forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems to be that 2016 is that statistical fluke where more predominant people die. Mr. Hockey, what's his face, the great Gordy passed on earlier this year. Prince did. Same time as I believe the wrestler Chyna. She was not as well known though. And so you may not have known that she passed on about this. Like I think within just like 48 hours of Prince dying, right?
Yeah, and there are a few others, and I remember reading about that, but then I sort of forgot about it again.
But that's the thing is we can consider Chyna to be one of those lesser celebrities, more well known in the wrestling circles. If you were a big wrestling fan, that would have been a much more prominent news to you than I suppose Prince passing away. Prince, however, being a hit artist who has spanned decades, and influenced a lot of people, is one of those mainline A-list celebrities that everyone's going to have some connection. Like, oh, I really loved his Raspberry Beret song; it was so good. Even it's held up after so many decades. Or I liked his other stuff, and I liked his style. And remember that story about him beating Charlie Murphy in a game of basketball. And so, like, everyone's got a little story to tell of Prince.
Okay.
And so I just think it's a statistical fluke this year that more, well-known celebrities are succumbing to various things and passing on than is, like a standard year. Or it may be the noticeable effect, where once you are noticing this sort of thing, it becomes very prominent. Like if I was to say, don't you ever realize, like whenever you're in a parking lot, there's always a red vehicle in the corner of the parking lot? And so it'll wind up being now that when you look in a parking lot and you see a red vehicle in the corner, you'll think, dude, that guy from the podcast told me about this. There's a red car in the lot, and it's right there at the corner. When, it's actually just as common there to be any color of a vehicle in the corner of a parking lot. But now that I've mentioned red, you'll see that red car in the corner of the parking lot and make a conscious note of it.
All right.
So it seems more prevalent. Like, you'd say oh yeah, every time I'm driving by, a place at night, it always seems as though there's, lights, like the lights, on the side of the road going off as I drive by. When it's like, no, statistically, a majority of the lights are staying on. It's just the odd light that blinks on and off. They have a feature built in those road lights that in order to prevent blowout, they will turn themselves off when they overheat, so that you won't have to spend so much time because they're pretty high up there, right? Those are high up, street lights. So in order to prevent the excessive maintenance, they have like a built-in feature where they'll be on about half the time, and so long as most lights are on all the time, it's an okay thing.
All right.
But all you have to do is like be driving at night and see, the light go off as you drive by, and also like, yeah, I notice a lot of lights seem to go off as I drive by. It's like, well, if it goes off every 45 seconds and it takes you a minute between you seeing the light and driving by the light, you are likely to see the light turn off. So that light will always appear to turn off or on for you. So you can see it as a positive thing. It's like, I always notice these dark lights blinking on whenever I drive by. I must be a very bright person. Yuck, yuck, yuck. But it's one of those effects that seems like it's a thing, but when you actually check the math, it doesn't bear out.
Well, actually, what I'm curious about is, and maybe there isn't an answer to this, but, how would you go about, if you really wanted to check celebrity deaths, how would you go about checking and sort of measuring the degree of fame that they have versus how many of them died this year versus last year?
Well, I think Prince would be actually one of the easiest ones to compare against because he's gotten platinum records. So you could do a comparison of artists that have hit platinum, double platinum, and all that sort of thing, or hit so many records gone platinum to mark A-list versus B-list versus Tommy Two-Tone, who's really known for his, A675-309, Jenny's song.
In the music industry, you can measure by album sales.
Yes, and because they give awards out for album sales, there's these really convenient benchmarks.
Yeah.
Whereas,
it's a little harder to, measure against other, film would be easy also, generally, because there's ticket sales and stuff like that.
You could work for Oscar Award winners in that case.
Yeah, you can, prizes and awards and stuff like that.
And then China, would wind up being a slightly harder one. You could work with belt titles, but that's not as strong a thing, because it is a little bit more subjective.
Yeah.
Especially depending on how much you believe the faking of the whole thing.
I think one thing they sometimes do, as surveys and stuff, is they'll have a recognizability survey that they'll send out to sort of random people.
That would also be a very good way of determining.
And
this.
You just have either a picture of them or just their name, and then just random people will fill it out and say, "Do you recognize this person? Do you know kind of what they do?" And
well, that's the thing is a written survey might not work well. James Avery, Uncle Phil from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air series. He's a pretty recognizable figure. I mean, he's Uncle Phil, right? But some people will not recognize him as Uncle Phil because they'll recognize him more as the voice of the Shredder from the 1980s Ninja Turtles cartoons. So they may not have watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because I have no idea why. It was a great series. But not, if they didn't watch that, then showing a picture of the, because he passed on a couple of years ago, and most people don't know this.
Okay.
Because it was just before Christmas, and I suppose everyone was busy elsewhere with the news. It didn't really circulate very well. So you could show his real life picture, and people wouldn't recognize him because they'd respond to his voice. Because he's the Shredder, and he's a very distinctive voice for him doing the Shredder sort of thing. It's something that I've heard in another room. I'm like, yeah, that's him. That's the Shredder. Whereas other people will try and imitate it, sort of thing. Like in the Turtles Forever movie, he had passed on already, so they couldn't get him to do it. So they had to get a different voice, and it wasn't right. It didn't sound right.
I see. Okay.
Same with a few of the other Turtles from the 80s series. They weren't able to get the roles from, and I could definitely hear it, and it did not sound right to my ear, even though I hadn't been watching the series in a very long time. So yeah, the whole written thing might not work quite as well as depending on what they were known for.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, like a survey, especially for many categories that don't do the awards sort of thing, could work out well, like noted authors and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, anything, authors, politicians, but then of course, you get loaded up with thousands of, because
and that's the thing is there's a lot of celebrities in a lot of fields. As you said, politicians. We could count presidents. We can count long-running members of Congress, parliaments. You could talk about some notorious special interest groups sort of people.
Yeah, you could have Edward Snowden. He's not a politician, but he's political.
Yeah.
And Julian Assange, people like that.
Yeah, and so there's enough celebrity classification for names of people that you should probably recognize or remember that there's no way you could go a length of period of time without someone passing away that you've heard of, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing about this is I caught myself saying, "Oh, 2016, don't you dare take Meatloaf away from me." he taught me about paradise by the dashboard light, and that means a lot. Don't you do this, 2016. And then I caught myself saying, okay, one, it didn't take him. He's still alive. Fingers crossed he makes a full recovery. And two, it's like, no, statistically, this is not claiming any extra people. This is just something we've noted.
Well, we don't know.
Well, that's the thing is there was a few notable births or certain notable deaths towards the start of the year. There was some notable births sort of thing, going on. These celebrity couple had a baby here and there, but they're never as big a news story as the deaths sort of thing. So there's not even like a counterbalance act going on for this, now we'll monitor the news stories for anyone famous dying and mention as like the curse of 2016 getting another one. So yeah, it's just one of those weighted biases going on. Mm-hmm. And that was my semi-conspiracy thing. I do have a proper conspiracy bit this week.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay, so I got some news stories going on. And I was thinking, they're, I guess, good news stories, and the fact that it's newsworthy, so hey, good for that. And it's not like fluff news either, right? But it's like I could combine this, together, and I could, do a conspiracy thing for what really happened, and the stories that they're telling you is just cover.
All right, what really happened then?
Okay, well, here's the news stories I'm going to do with two of them. One is so there's a drive-by shooting in Souk. Earlier this week.
Which is a town outside of Victoria.
Yeah, it's part of the greater, Victoria metro area sort of thing. Or the butt end of Victoria, major, as some people want to claim it. But yeah, drive-by shooting. And they arrested one person. They were looking for two people. And they had some reasons to suspect, these particular areas. And so they shut down the Thetis Lake campground and the, I think it was Lost Lake Drive area.
Okay.
And to do a proper search, and they're basically telling everyone, try not to go out and all this. Don't take any photos of the police and circulate them about. If the culprits, the people, the suspects were looking, on like public, news sources, that say, oh yeah, the cops were here at this time. That means they're going this way across, which means we can avoid them that way. Do some counter tactics. Because apparently these people were smart enough to start thinking counter tactics, but the police said don't even try and give them the chance.
Okay.
And there was even a bit where they effectively they locked the school doors. The schools were still open in the areas, but the doors were locked, and it's just like, we are not, letting the kids out. You're going to have to come pick them up, by yourself and your parents, we'll hand them off to you.
And this was all because somebody shot somebody else. But it was just like
three people shot, two people.
Okay.
Two people are in the hospital. They're not dead. Yay! But it was like a drive-by shooting, and that's rare enough here in Canada. That is a very big thing.
Yeah.
And so, and trying to catch these felonious, suspects. They did catch them later on. Hooray! Yeah. Did require at least some lockdown to help regulate, the flow to make sure they couldn't slip on by the police so easy. Fair enough. And then there was a story, and this is actually, I like the story because it involves a kid who doesn't die, and there's been some news stories about kids that have died recently for various reasons. So yay! But spoiler alert, I suppose. So, guy, military man going to CFB Esquimalt early in the morning. And he's driving through Langford, and what does he see but a 3-year-old kid wearing nothing but diapers walking down this side of the road alone. So that's a pretty suspect thing. It's like why is the kid only wearing diapers, and where the heck are the parents?
That would be a strange thing to see.
That would be a
very
very strange thing.
Immediate question, yes.
And so the military man stops the thing, and he greets the kid, meets the kid, takes the kid with him to the police.
Okay, is that standard procedure? If you see a child,
well, you
by
don't.
itself,
you can't just leave a child all alone by themselves. I mean, there are even urbanized deer around in the area that could.
Deer's going to get the kid.
Well, that's the thing. If the deer feels threatened by the kid, that kid is not going to stand a chance. You cannot leave someone so vulnerable to themselves, especially if they're just wearing a diaper and it's early in the morning. Even cold could wind up claiming them. Then they sit down because, oh, I'm cold. I'll go shiver here. Because my daughter's the same age, sort of thing, and so I can see, my daughter Zoe just, kind of, I'll go sit down somewhere, and then it's harder to find the kid. So once you've located the kid, man, you make sure you do not lose that kid again. So I think he did very much do the right choice in this regard.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I guess you look around to see if the parents aren't just, in the park or whatever.
Yeah. And so, he takes the kid, though, to the police. The police are able to find the address for the parents because, hey, kid's on record. It's a good thing to have kids, like fingerprints and all that on there. It's a security precaution.
Do they do that for? I think I had my fingerprints taken when I was like 5.
Oh. You can get it done fairly early if you want
Okay.
to, sort of thing. It's just nice to have them on record at any age, I suppose. So they were able to find the address, and so the cops take the kid to the address, and there's a nice little home. Garage doors open, so they knock on the door, ring the doorbell, and all that. There's no response, and so because the garage door's open, suspicious sort of thing. Kid wandering out alone. Parent. There's no one answering the doorbell. So good enough reason for the cops to enter the premises.
Okay.
And what do they find? But both the parents asleep in bed. They were just really asleep. Nothing. I had to even take pop some pills to go to sleep. It's just they're really asleep.
They're just sleeping.
Yeah.
Okay. How early in the morning was this?
This would be around sunup, sort of thing. Still
Okay.
pretty early in the morning by the time the cops were bringing the kid home.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, the kid woke up early, and my daughter can open up doors, sort of thing. So you get the kid in the room, and the kid's able to leave the room. Mm-hmm. And apparently the parents did not baby-proof the home well enough, or I guess toddler-proof in this case. And so the kid was able to open up the garage door and then just go wandering out.
Just went for a walk on his own.
Yeah, just went for a walk on it all by himself. Just like, my parents are sleeping. I guess I'll just go out and just have a walk.
It does seem odd to me that you said it wasn't a fluff. Well, the first one wasn't fluff because it was people with guns and shooting and stuff. But this one doesn't seem like it would be in the news necessarily unless.
Well, this wasn't covered in the news like day after day. It was it was a nice thing I heard over on the CPAC's 1070 AM.
Okay, yeah.
Which, by the way, it's not sponsoring us. If you're in the local area, it's a good AM station. Got good news stories.
CFAX
1070 AM. Yeah. It's the only good thing on the AM station I can find most days. But yeah, it was a news story in there, and I liked it because one, hey, aside from a lack of baby proofing, there was no villains in this story, and it all ended happily. Everyone did the right thing, and that's always nice to hear, right? Like, how often do you hear a news story where everything went right except for that one factor? No one got hurt.
It sounds like it's lacking a little, doesn't have that spice that you really want with a news story.
Well, I find it a nice counter spice. It's a good milk as opposed to the spices of the story about the kids that have passed on for various reasons.
I'm not saying I want anybody to pass on.
No. But I'm going to work these two stories together.
Yeah.
As a conspiracy thing as to what really happened.
Well, I guess you got to wonder if there's people with if it's at the same time and people with guns are running around and hiding in the area.
You definitely don't want a 3-year-old walking
I
about.
suppose, yeah. You immediately make the connection that that could happen. Although, what is a criminal going to do to a baby? I mean,
take the baby to the police and then appeal to their better nature as him as a human being to get lesser sentence for the crimes committed. It's like, dude, okay, I did a drive-by shooting, but I returned this baby I saw on the side of the road. I am not an inhuman monster here. All I'm asking is that the jury gives me a little bit of, better leniency because I'm proven I'm not this horrible, horrible person. It was a targeted shooting on the drive-by. Come on. So, they could use it, the poor kid as leverage, and still in the best possible way, not like, I've got a baby, you let me go or I'm doing something. So it's like, we're still following the best possible storyline on this sort of thing. But, okay. Those of you who know the history of Thetis Lake know that there have been a few people that have accused Thetis Lake of having frog-like monsters in it.
I think there's one guy who made up the story. And
there was 2 guys, and one of them
officially
renounced it. But for some reason, it has stuck.
Yeah.
The Thetis Lake monster.
That's how we get legends.
Yeah. One guy who's a really bad liar in a news story to carry it on a bad news day. Or slow news day, I suppose. So I'm going to say, the reason why they closed down the Thetis Lake area and the Lost Lake Road area was because of a frog monster invasion. Why were they invading? They wanted the chosen one, a special child, and they found that had escaped from their clutches, and that was the 3-year-old who was found wandering. But that's okay, because the police have special, safety homes set up. Because what 3-year-old really has their prints on file, right, Josh?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, you said it yourself. You're seeing through this disguise. And so these sleeping parents are really just, like automaton drones to show that it's like, oh yeah, these are the parents of this kid who's clearly not, a born chosen one that escaped from the Thetis Lake, monsters. And that's what's really going on. So that's why they have to close the areas to stop the invasion, as the Thetis monsters try to find their chosen sacrifice. But that's okay, because we've got that chosen one, and they're safe now. You're safe, chosen one.
I like how your conspiracy theory is just, it also ends with a happy ending.
Not if you're a Thetis-like monster.
I suppose.
Your chosen sacrifice is out. Do you know what that means? That means Sathakwa, your god, is going to be very angry at you for at least one more generation. Welcome to very cold winters. Hope you can hibernate. Well, don't starve.
We could use a couple more colder winters.
Yeah, it's good for everyone except for those Thetis-like monsters who might freeze to death in the ensuing winters.
Yeah, but at least the Marbits will wake up again.
Depends on how well the summers go. If it's too cold, they'll burn through their energy and starve to death as they sleep, away anyways. So yeah, that's my conspiracy thing. Is you take the news stories, you weave them together, and you come up with the true, the true story about what's going on.
I like the local flavor on this one too. Yeah.
But it can't always be grand international, conspiracy things. It's like, who really ever heard of a nation called Syria? It doesn't really exist. No, this is going to be a local sort of conspiracy craziness. Where it's, they closed down the Thetis Lake Park area because the monsters were invading, and they needed the civilians out of the way so that the military and the cops can, stop this threatened invasion.
Although, I kind of wish there was a just one country denialism, like one. You know how there's flat earthers will say, oh, the earth is flat or whatever.
I believe there's a running joke about one of the states not existing down in the United States.
Okay.
Have you ever actually met anybody from, I don't know, like we'll say Ohio. You ever actually met anyone from Ohio? No, because it doesn't really exist. I think it varies, though. Like, if you're over on the West Coast, it's one of the more easterly states, and if you're on the East Coast, you're one of the more westerly states.
I feel like I hear Ohio stories all the time, plus it's a very populous state. I wouldn't pick Ohio.
Okay, maybe Wyoming.
Wyoming is...
You ever heard anyone...
I think Wyoming's like the least populous state, so that's
you go.
Good one to choose.
Of course, because if you don't exist, you have zero for your population. It has to be the least populous state.
Yeah.
Wyoming, like that. What even state sounds like that? That's made up. That's a made-up name. Wyoming. Come on. They weren't even trying when they made that one up.
I guess so, yeah.
So, yeah, it works like that. I actually wouldn't mind seeing a state pick up on that one. You think, come to Wyoming. We'll prove we actually exist. Wyoming, we exist, we swear. Please, don't forget about us. You can make it a real fun series of commercials. You can have a blast with that, man. People would really remember that.
The other thing that sometimes happens is there's still islands that exist on maps to this day that don't exist in real life. Like, for some reason, cartographers put them down. Like,
there used to be a thing about like putting a town out in the middle of nowhere on your map, and the town doesn't actually exist. And thus, if you were to look at any of your competitors' maps, and if they include that town, then you can sue them, because that town doesn't really exist, and the only way you know it, you put it on there is if you were copying from our maps. So there are towns historically that have never existed that have been on the map. So, yeah.
That'd be weird, though, if you were one of those people who, like, I'm going to go travel the world, and I'll go where this dart hits. You throw your dart at your map, and it hits a town. It's like, oh, that sounds like a wonderful little town. So you travel there, you drive in your car there, and you just, pull up to the road, there's just nothing there. No town. I
think that could make for the start of either a good horror or psychological thriller sort of movie. Like, you were really counting on there being a place there because you don't really have enough gas to get anywhere else anymore.
Or, like, you were, like, catfished or something by, like, somebody on the internet or something, and they're like, yeah, we live here, and here's our family, pictures of the family, like, here, come to our town, and so you're finally ready to meet this person. Maybe it's like a long-distance internet relationship or something, or, what, something like that.
What if it turns out to be like one of those, what do you call it, like, that one town from Scotland that only appears every so often?
Yeah, could be that.
But it turns out internet connection is always established.
Oh yeah.
So the town only physically exists like once a year, but they've always got dial-up internet at least. So it's just not that bad. They're stuck in a void the other 364 days of the year, but they got internet.
What happens if you from the outside world move to that town? Like you find it and you figure out the mystery or whatever.
Oh, does it disappear around you, or do you go with it?
Or do you become a part of it?
I'm going to work with the Star Trek one where they did something on that, and that if you're in the area, you go with it.
Okay.
But you can't leave thereafter. You become part of it, and then you cannot become an unpart of it.
You can't leave that town.
You can't just be out of the town boundaries at the end of that day, and thus you're free forever.
What does happen to you if you leave the town boundaries on the day?
You disappear but you're not with the town. So for the rest of the year, you're just completely alone in the foggy void.
Are you? Well, I guess we can make this up. Are you aware of that
Yes.
you're not in existence?
It's horrible, and people have been driven insane from the loneliness of 364 days of nothing, no one, and no sights around them. So people don't do that ever again.
So if you're in the town together and you're in proximity of the other townspeople,
it's all okay. You have that sort of like townsfolk thing.
So the town still operates sort of in this.
I don't know if you need to eat or
realm.
sleep or anything like that, but it does exist in some sort of phantasmal state.
Okay.
But if you're too far away, you can't make your way back. You're trapped in the void by yourself, a small,
in the ethereal
tiny
plane,
pocket.
we'll say. Yeah. There might be other ethereal towns.
Yeah, but you can't make your way there.
Yes,
The only way to do it would be go from one ethereal town to the other, because they're like temporary islands or thing. If you get stuck in between when it goes off there. Ooh, which is another good plot for movies. Like a guy picks up a hitchhiker, and the hitchhiker's like a really desperate guy, and winds up like getting a gun out of the glove compartment. You gotta get me to the town in time. You gotta get me to the town. And then because of reasons or whatever, he doesn't get there, and then he just vanishes out. Sort of thing when the time is up, and then he's stuck in the void for like an entire year until both towns come back, and then he's gonna have to race again and try and make it then.
But like
if
maybe
he's still sane by the time he comes back.
Maybe there's a scientist who has like some steampunk like suit, or like that looks like a deep sea diving suit that actually lets you navigate the ethereal realm, something like that. And then you can have like ethereal travelers.
Oh, phantasmal travelers moving the land. On the roads with us, but we can never truly see them, except in the depths of night on a foggy, foggy night when you think you see them just as you round the corner, and then they vanish in with the mists.
That's right, yeah. And you have like a plucky, like, young scientist lady who's like, develops a radar system. Who's like, I see them on the radar.
Why do these phantasmal bloops keep appearing? What's wrong with my system? Nothing. In fact, it's better than the others because it's picking up what's actually there. And then she'd have to do some sort of reverse engineering of things so that she could wind up, going in phase with them. So you'd wind up being some sort of crazy, phase harmonics thing going on for her. I dig this, man. This has got a lot of potential with these phantasmal towns. I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Like an entire there's not, I can't even call it like an underground economy thing, but there's this entire shadow world going like Shadow America or Shadow Canada.
I guess I was picturing Scotland since you mentioned Scotland.
Well, I'm keeping it in the New World sort of thing.
Sure, yeah. We could say Thetis Lake.
Yeah. Thetis Lake is one of them. The monsters exist there, but only at the right time of the year.
Yeah, they come out on the solstice.
Ooh, or just before the solstice. Do it like a Call of Cthulhu, like 23rd March to 1st April sort of thing. They have the 8 days of Cthulhu.
Oh yeah.
Sort of thing. So it's like the week leading up to the solstice.
Is that the Ides of March, or is that something else?
No, the Ides of March is in the middle.
Okay.
The Awakening of Cthulhu is 23rd March, 1st April. Except when you're on the other side for the international dateline, then things kind of shift over one.
I like the thought that every week of the year has a different horror awaiting you.
Oh.
Here's the Ides of March. Here's Cthulhu. Here's Halloween. Satan. And
welcome to the week leading up to Valentine's Day. If you're single, you must despair, and if you're in a relationship, you must worry. It is the week of trepidation.
I like that. Because, they have a lot of religions will have, this is, the feast week, this is the week.
The festival of St. Givens.
Yeah, and this is St. Stephen's, and et cetera, et cetera. But, yeah, you can have, a religion that's just all, all the bad, I don't know, hauntings and.
Well, you'd want to cycle it through. You don't want to be too full of despair. That's like 52 celebrations a year. That's a lot of That's Party Central, man. You could go with a lot on that. Not bad. Okay, but yes, I think it's been a very productive conspiracy corner we've had this week.
Yeah, right.
And I'm going to invite anyone else out there who's come up with an idea based on what we've said. I want you to send that in. I want to hear your idea on these phantasmal phasing towns throughout North America, the Thetis Lake monsters that only arise once a week, and like sacrificial chosen ones and all that. I want to see your take on this. I want to see this mythos added to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of like getting listeners to respond, can we thank the listeners? Well, how do we put that?
Josh has been keeping an eye on our numbers, and within this last week marks 10,000 downloads of our various iterations.
So that's all together. So it sounds like a lot.
It's not every week 10,000 downloads. We're not that popular.
Yeah. So it means that there's roughly 50 of you, give or take. I guess some people come on and some people drop off, but
it averages.
Yeah, average about 50 listeners, and over we're at episode 198 this time. So I think it's kind of a cool thing to note. Like, just hey, cool.
Well, that's the thing is that marks 150,000 hours of us speaking that people have collectively heard, and that's the weird thing when you start thinking about it that way. Is our numbers, they work out decent, but you work out Kevin Smith, they got 50,000 per 2 hour episode for him. Is it about 2 hours? Hour and a half, 2 hours?
Yeah, I don't know what Smodcast is currently like. Yeah, I don't know.
But it's much more respectable numbers than ours. But then when you think about it, because they're up in 300s now for theirs. They're hitting about 300.
Smodcast?
Yeah,
I don't even know.
I have to double check their numbers and all that.
I think they started several years before we started.
But yeah, then you work the numbers times by the length, and the grand tally comes out as there have been more people listening to Kevin Smith just through his podcast than he will have ever existed throughout his entire life.
If he was to will have met in person, you mean?
Well, that was the thing. It's if Kevin Smith was to talk to a listener for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then go on to the next one, he would not be able to spend enough time in his entire life to talk to all the people that have listened to him through his recordings, because the recording is like an amplifier. More people can hear it.
Yeah,
well, it's kind of like the HeLa cells in biology. There was once upon a time a lady called Henrietta Lacks. She had cancer, and they took some of the cancer cells out, and they were able to muck around with the cancer cells, and breed them. That even after Henrietta Lacks died, the cancer cells to this day, because she was died decades ago, HeLa cells are still out there. People are still doing tests with HeLa cells and variations on different lines of HeLa cells, and it's a contamination concern in some labs. 10 to 15% of all their samples are contaminated with HeLa cells. There is more of Henrietta Lacks in volume than when she was alive.
Oh, I see. Oh, cool.
So and recordings and whatnot work in a similar way. More people have heard people like Kevin Smith speak than Kevin Smith will have ever spoken in his entire life. And that works too for movies too. That's how celebrities get to be so big, is they've touched more lives than any one person could touch in an entire lifetime without recording technologies.
Yeah, and that's just the weird thing about modernity, and it's even the internet makes it even even more, because it doesn't take this big apparatus.
It's a media for sending it out there. All you have to do is be hooked up to the system, and it's all yours.
Yeah.
You get to pick and choose within some copyright boundaries, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it technically has been around. Their books have been doing that for literally hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Though Aristotle has taught more people than he could have ever taught in his entire life, thanks to the resounding, reverbing effect of his teachings being written down.
Yep.
So, woo, we're one of them now.
And now we, in a small part, we join that pantheon. I just think it's cool. That's all. That's 10,000.
I think it's very humbling.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's very humbling. It's just very, very nice. It's ooh, I really hope it was worth it. I hope nobody says like, well, geez, let's see, we're at just under 200 podcasts now, so we'll go 200 times. Yeah, there's 3,000 hours I'm never going to get back again. So it's like, well, I hope no one said that. Especially, I mean, dude, like, if you didn't like us after our first 100 iterations, why'd you keep going? But, yeah.
Well, I don't know, actually, because we don't hear a lot of feedback about, like, exactly how listeners are listening, which is fine.
I'd like to think no news is good news
same.
in that as well. And that if they're not responding sort of thing all the time, it's because they appreciated what we had to say, and then they go off to live their lives fruitfully and with a little extra wisdom or jovialness or some ideas, taking root in their head. I'm okay with that. But, hey, if you guys want to say hi, I'm not going to say no. Don't talk to me.
Why we always give out the social media information at the end of the show.
But yes, now that we've got the news and a very good, I think, conspiracy corner out of the way, what you been up to on a personal level, Josh?
Oh, just, video games. I played a bit of Minecraft. Let's see, I built some animal pens in Minecraft, so... just the stuff you normally do in Minecraft. Finally finished my giant square grass island, and so now I'm building animal pens on top of it. Next project is a mushroom farm. I've built tons of those already in Minecraft.
Automated or manual?
Probably manual, but I might throw in some automation there. I have some redstone ready to go, so I should maybe think about that.
I must admit, I'm still doing some tests on the farms. Because I tried doing like a penned-in one where you put like the mushrooms and you surround them by like the fence and you put like a layer of soil on top. And I've got all the proper, like mushroom, mycelium soil to work with. But they won't propagate across that line of the fence.
Oh.
Yeah, which is not something I saw in the wiki at all. Because I wanted to have a concept like, what if I had, like golems pick these sorts of things for me so that I could have, a great supply of mushrooms. Woo! They're very good for me for eating in the right fashion. And they will also help out for, like my Thaumcraft stuff. They got some nice tenebrious essences I can really make use of. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking at the whole thing there. But my experiment with putting a fence around it so they don't get to it did not work out well for me. So I removed some of the fence, and they started growing out on my test plot. So now I've got to do some work with, I guess, half slabs to see if I can get them to grow across that, or does that count as a solid block as well? Very, very interesting work I'm doing there.
Yeah.
But what style of a mushroom farm do you utilize?
I've done a few different versions. I have an automated mushroom farm somewhere in the world, but I left that area a long time ago and kind of haven't been back. But it's basically when they came out with daylight sensors, I added that. So it's all underground and it's like layered on top of each other. So there's about 9 floors worth of mushrooms, and it has like little rows in between that are raised up with mushrooms on top, and then water washes like back and forth down across the whole
because you've got it short enough
layers.
Per layer that it can rush down and then start at the full strength again and keep going back and forth.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So basically the mushrooms grow for the entire day, and then the water gets triggered when the day switches to night. And then, water washes down the whole thing. And then I can't remember if I have the water on. I think I leave the water on all night, and the mushrooms grow all day. Something like, or either the opposite. But basically, yeah. So it's not the fastest.
Well, that's why I like some of the stuff in the Thaumcraft mods. Is I got like a clock that you can set off for a timer, and you can set multiple times a day. It'll do it. Because right now I've got it set for 7 o'clock for all my piston farms. I should adjust that. It really causes some lag at 7 in the morning.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there go a lot of things at once. Yeah. But it does make things really convenient. It surprises me that they don't have something more like that in just basic Minecraft.
Yeah. You can, it's possible to make something like that out of redstone.
Comparators, and it does require a lot more setup and a lot more know-how on that to make it all work. So it just seems rather inconvenient that they don't have at time of day set this to go off.
Yeah. So yeah, basically my island base is pretty much finished. It's like I don't need that mushroom farm, but I'm like, yeah, I'll add a mushroom farm just for the heck of it.
Why not?
And then yeah, I have sheep pens. So now basically I have all the things I need to start doing pixel art, like in the oceans around that island.
Very nice.
And I'll have some interesting patterns. I haven't decided. It's hard to decide where to start because it's a pretty big project. Like each pixel art is like a lot.
Yeah.
So I need something that really is compelling as far as like what do I really need as a painting.
Your character's face.
Yeah, I suppose the face would be good. I guess yeah. In Minecraft, I don't know if I have the version where you can get your head with a charged creeper. I think that might be possible.
I think I can get my own head thanks to some of the mods, but I've never tried it.
Yeah. So that's Minecraft. Oh, I also watched a film movie. I watched Maze Runner, which...
Oh, yeah, that's one of the more recent movies.
I think it's the last, 2 or 3 years. I think there even might be a sequel. Maze Runner 2 might already
I remember hearing them talking about it, whether or not it went through, though.
Yeah.
I didn't follow.
And I feel like we may have mentioned it even on the Simulationist as a thing I wanted to watch, and I never got around to watching. But I finally did get around to watching it. I liked it. It was a fun movie.
Cross between, I've been told, the Matrix with Cube.
Well, yeah, I mean, the premise is fairly straightforward. It's a giant maze made of sort of concrete and metal. It doesn't look that high tech, but it's obviously, a lot went into making it.
Well, if it's automated, it's very complex.
Like it's able to move these giant concrete blocks around to make a new maze for you. So it's human. Is it human scale? It's a scale that humans can kind of run around in.
Not very many mazes are like that, yeah. And it's too high to get up on top, so you can't literally run on the top of the maze, can you? That bothered me about the movie because they're like, the ivy doesn't go all the way to the top because there's ivy in some of the sections. Yeah.
And apparently the spiders, because they have the only living things in the maze are like little birds and mice and stuff, and these
and
giant,
the people, I assume,
the humans who run through it and stuff. And the giant robot spiders that chase the humans out at night.
Spider killer drones.
Yeah, and the language of the show kind of bothers me a little because they call them grievers. Everything is an grievers, runners, slicers, cutters, growers. They don't use. They invent their own language, even though they probably would have known English anyways, but I guess...
fair enough.
Yeah. So they have all
kind of got like a Lord of the Flies sort of feel going to it then for names?
Yeah, I guess that's another aspect of the film that's apparent immediately, is that it's all boys. It's all 13 to 18.
And that's why it's just one gender going on in there. Because they want, whoever's putting them there wants them for a purpose, and if you put boys and girls and no adults in a situation like that, then stuff's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess that's what...
Statistically, it's inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah, so, for some reason it's all boys.
So does that mean there's another maze out there somewhere with just all ladies in there?
I haven't watched the sequels, but I would imagine maybe, yeah. That might have been also a
sequel or parallel movie? Because you could do one where it's just all girls in there, and thus it wouldn't really be a sequel so much as there's a parallel.
That's interesting, yeah. I don't know if anybody's ever done that kind of ideal with a movie.
I think technically the Marvel stuff is going that route.
Oh, sure, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Between their big, collection movies.
Yeah, and X-Men is technically in the same universe as Marvel, but...
Well, not the cinematic universe, and the X-Men's got a thing whereby they've got different timelines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that one gets really complex. You really got to sit back and start doing some diagrams to show what's going on when and where.
Okay. But yeah, Maze Runner. Let's see. Do I recommend it? Sure, why not? I mean, I don't think it's a masterpiece of filmmaking, but it was enjoyable for me. And I liked watching the kids run around in a maze and get chased by spiders.
And so, without actually giving any spoilers, do they explain what the heck is going on with, like, why did they wake up in a maze all of a sudden?
There is an explanation, and it's sort of futuristic, obviously, because it's
Does it make sense,
maze.
or is it incredibly impractical?
It basically makes sense. I have a feeling, like, not having watched the next movie in the sequence, I have a feeling that there's more secrets to be revealed in the second movie, that I didn't get all the information. But you get basically a marginally satisfying explanation for the thing. I wouldn't say it's 100% satisfying for me, and it's not really believable. But it's to get to the premise, to get to the thing of kids running through this technological maze and scared by giant robot spiders. I think that's difficult to write a story around and make it completely believable. So I'm like, okay.
Because that's the thing. Because like a little ways back, I watched Jupiter Ascending. And I don't care what other people say. It was not a bad movie, except for the economics of it. The bit was that they need to harvest humans in order to make this like longevity sort of thing. You bathe in it, and oh boy, you're rejuvenated to your prime age. Mm-hmm. And They harvest it, so something like humanity was seeded on Earth 100,000 years ago, and then they're gonna like do a harvesting. So like after 100,000 years, you harvest for 7 billion units, and it occurs to me, it's like why would you harvest the entire planet at once you've hit that population? Where you can get that, because if you sacrifice even 1% of the population a year to this harvesting, like tithe requirement, you can get much better return on investments over a long period of time, and you don't have to like wait another 100,000 years to harvest from an area. You could set up, okay, now that you've hit this this mass of people that we can get it from you, instead of like getting 7 billion people all at once, we can do 70 million people a year, which is like just not that a lot, and you could wind up getting a lot better return on investment. So it's like the bit that really got me was how, for some reason, the greater galactic existence, nobody has ever come up with a better economical model than what we have here on Earth to show efficiencies. Yeah,
you'd think. Well, I mean, farming. When you do farming, you don't just harvest 10% of your field at once. But the other thing about farming is everything grows in annual cycles, so it's a 1-year thing, and then you harvest it all, plant it again. It's not like you have generations living and dying in your harvest before you actually decide to harvest.
Yeah, you don't plant a field and then come back 30 years later.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, even like tree farms sort of thing, you grow the trees ahead of time, plant them, and then you're harvesting within 2 years.
And you're harvesting the same trees. You're not harvesting like, those trees grew up.
We have grown the orchards of the Okanagan. Time to harvest them all and cut down every last tree to a stump. Yeah. Then we shall plant them again and redo it in 30 years. Yeah. That's very not efficient. Like how did this even come to be? And so I'm hoping that your Maze Runner movie has an explanation that makes better, economical model sense than what? Why don't we build a giant maze to put a bunch of teenagers in? So, fingers crossed, there's a better explanation. Or at least maybe throughout the sequels, it provides a much more complete explanation for it.
I think it's a little bit like Hunger Games in that sense that
you'd be better off pacifying the population through a use of drugs rather than forcing them to sacrifice their kids every year, thus fomenting huge levels of rebellious intent.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know which came first actually out of the two, like whether Maze Runner was. I think it's based on a book.
I think they're both based on books. I have to check to see which book came first.
So yeah, I'd be interested to see whether Hunger Games or Maze Runner. And of course, I mean, neither of these are brand new, unique ideas, but it is interesting that they both came to us around this time.
Well, that youth-adult market sort of thing, getting those teenagers to spend their money. That's a big thing in Hollywood.
Yeah. And okay. So that was what I did. Oh, and also one other quick thing that I did. I am preparing for Roll for Initiative. Hi. I'm going to be, fingers crossed that people are signed up for tables. They already have them signed up, but you never know. But yeah, I should be running as a dungeon master, running a table on this coming Saturday.
Ooh,
so
5th edition, 3rd edition?
I'll be running
4th.
3rd edition.
Okay.
If you're interested in 5th edition, Alex does have a table also. So yeah, if our listeners want to come out to Roll for Initiative, that's on Saturday. I'll put a link in our show notes. It's Roll for Initiative. I think it's .ca or whatever. It's here in Victoria.
Google it, Bing it. It should be able to pop up like really quick.
Yeah, hopefully.
Roll for Initiative Victoria.
Yeah, I mean they have a website now which has a little our banner to the Simulationist on there, so it's all good.
Cross-linking, synergies. Oh yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so looking forward to that. I've been preparing for that. So yeah, that's my stuff.
As for me, I got a chance to watch Mad Max Fury Road.
Okay, finally.
I can see why it won awards.
Okay.
Even the bits that were over the top, like the war band is chasing after them, and they got this one guy playing a guitar. That's all he does is just play a guitar, and there's like 100 speakers behind him, and he's yeah. It's like it's so over the top. It's just entertaining. It's like I don't care that it's not really practical for him to be playing like some metal rock music as they go down through the desert, because it's awesome. And it's awesome enough. It's like oh, okay, I can see that being like a morale booster. It's like I wouldn't mind fighting people while this guy plays awesome music to be my theme song. I mean, in America.
It's like ancient bands ancient armies used to have pipe bands or pipers and drummers.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It was used primarily for helping out with orders too. So you can hear things over the din of battle to know when flank to the left. Retreat back. Yeah. There's
cool.
What's the thing? You hear the horns. And then like, oh no, why are they retreating? It's like they're not retreating. They're bringing in the second enforcements.
Okay.
They showed that in the third Hobbit movie for the thing. They had like that banner sort of thing up there so that the enemy troops could see what was going on. And thus they could send signals down there, because I mean, you need communication on the battlefield as much as anywhere else. Mm-hmm. But this was really much a morale sort of thing. The guy's like really rocking out. He's playing around. He's like, you see, he's having the time of his life.
Yeah.
So I like that. It did require you to remember the previous movies. It did not handhold you and then give you a lot of exposition as to how things got to where they are and all that sort of thing. You kind of have to remember. And I caught myself. I was like, okay, Beyond Thunderdome, what was going on there? Okay, Bartertown going on. Okay, I remember this. And because aside from the original Mad Max, which I bought on VHS just to have everyone give a good look at for the original, see how much it's departed. It's a very different movie than the Fury Road. But you really need to be up on your Mad Max lore, otherwise you will feel like you're running just to catch up. But that's okay, because I mean, one, I respect a movie that doesn't try and hold my hand and explain everything out throughout every little bit. Even after so many years, because it's like this allows it to very much hit the ground running and bring like the action right up there without having to wait. And oh God, they're still talking. Why are they still talking in the post-apocalyptic wasteland? Why don't they just drive around and shoot things, please? Where's the bullet farm? Oh my God. Yeah, there literally is a bullet farm there. Yeah. Tells a good story. Mad Max is not the only good character in there. There was just enough of the characters for me to get to like them and enjoy them, even if they were the bad guys. Mm-hmm. I don't need to know all the backstory for all of them. I don't need to know history. I don't really need to know much more of basic motivations for them to be entertaining. And that's what was provided. It was very good that way. And, twists in here and good visual effects there. And, people rise up to becoming heroes. And people show how bad they truly are and yada, yada, yada. And I recommend it. Bring popcorn and soda. It's one of those movies where popcorn and soda definitely help make it a more entertaining sort of thing. Bring a pizza if you're that kind of person. It's definitely one of those enjoyable. It's all sit down. I think I would have enjoyed it more with you or my brothers there with me. It's one of the things you want to enjoy with good friends and people who want to watch a good action movie. That said, I watched it by myself and was very entertained. So it's good even if you can't find anyone to watch it with.
All right, cool.
So yay, 2 thumbs up. I'll give it 12 out of 13 dwarves.
Very good.
They lost a dwarf because of flagrant water mishandling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, towards the beginning sort of thing. It's like, oh, okay, you open up the water thing, and the guy shows how much power this evil warlord has by dumping out like three like big like water shunts. So it's the water it comes pouring down. The people are trying to collect it up. I'm like, if you had doled that out properly, you wouldn't have to have people fighting for it, and you probably could have given a lot more people a lot more water. So they lost a dwarf because of flagrant, misuse of water under strict... If they're in the middle of a desert, you don't waste water, man. Come on.
Okay. Was this the bad guy, though?
He was the bad guy, but, even in the end sort of thing, when, good guys win sort of thing, there's still that water is, spraying out. And it's like, no, well, you guys could... I understand now as a way of celebration, but if you guys do a sequel and I see that water pouring out again, I am not going to be happy.
Is this movie set in Australia, too?
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. Well, they do
no?
have Australian accents, so
Okay.
it'd be weird to explain why they're not Australian.
Right.
Well, not everyone has the Australian accent, but there's enough Australian accents and, I guess American accents that it's got to be one or the other.
Okay.
And it definitely has the feel of, the Australian desert sort of thing.
Yeah.
That said, the Australian desert seems bigger. Because it's like a 2-day ride to get to where they get towards the edge, and then they talk about like 160 days ride across like the salt flats. So I imagine Australia might be subject to a larger landmass because of less water now on the planet.
Okay.
Because if you're on a motorcycle and you're riding for 160 days, you should be able to get across Australia in that time. So, I assume, whatever thing broke the world, it took a lot of water with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But yeah, it didn't give all the answers, too, because that's one of the things. Yeah, who broke the world? That's never answered because they're not in a position to answer that. It's not...
Yeah, and that's not what the movie's about.
No.
Or is it? Okay.
No, the movie's about hope and, and like changing things. Like, I guess it'll be a bit of a spoiler, but not really. But yeah, one bit where Mad Max says, you don't get hope by running away. You get hope by being able to change things where you are. And that's, if you just keep trying to run away from things, you'll never really have hope.
So is Mad Max in this movie?
Yes, he is.
Like Mel Gibson?
No. They've replaced Mel Gibson with, I can't remember his name. He's one of those good actors sort of thing, though. Good sort of thing. Strong jawline, which is what's needed. But no, Mel Gibson, aside from his real-world antics making him a bit of a toxic commodity, he's also aged a lot, in between the movies. And thus, I would not want him to, nor would I try and force him to undertake the physical rigors of such, an active movie.
Okay, yeah. Although, taking the example of Harrison Ford, you could do it.
Well, that's the thing is apparently Disney is planning on making a Han Solo movie, but it's not going to be with Harrison Ford.
Actually, yeah, I wouldn't put him as a main.
Especially not for like a prequel sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're going to recast. They're going to cast a new guy in there, which by the way is going to be, I think, just hellacious. Because no matter who they pick, do you think the fans are going to be 100% happy? It's like, yeah, I can see him as a young Harrison Ford. It's going to be rather difficult to get anyone that the fans are going to be really all thumbs up about.
Difficult, not impossible. I've seen actors in the past do amazing things with old characters. Heath Ledger's the Joker.
Well, those are reimaginings, so you do get some extra leniency that way.
Yeah.
So I hope the fans, or at least I think Disney's built up some good credit with The Force Awakens. So hopefully the fans are going to be able to accept that sort of thing and make the solo movie work. Plus, he seems like an interesting character. He's always in over his head trying smuggling operations when he's not doing good. It'll be a fun movie, I think.
All right.
That said, it'll be a little weird because Han Solo is not exactly a good guy at the start of episode 4.
True, yeah.
He is what is
He's
effectively...
a scoundrel.
Well, he's not just a scoundrel, he's like a smuggler.
Yeah.
He'd be in our world the equivalent of a smuggler who's got himself his own 18-wheeler trying to smuggle stuff across the border. And what is implied, in at least one occasion, human smuggling operations.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So So yeah, it's going to be hard to make him be that character and still make him fairly sympathetic. Of course, the solution to sympathy for like a bad guy is to make the people around him even worse. So might be able to work.
Oh yeah, okay.
Have some fun with it.
Yeah,
maybe how Solo met his Wookiee in the movie. But yeah. Aside from that, for me this week, The Secret World released a massive content update. Some rebalancing of their epic abilities. Like I've been working with the assault rifle, and it's got the red mist one where it's like at a nice distance range. I can do a lot of like immediate damage, sort of things. So it's a good way to pull enemies in. And thanks to the rebalancing, it now does more damage and makes the enemy vulnerable to magic. They take 15% extra damage. So yeah, combined with the fact that magic is my other half of my rotation, I am doing very well these days on that.
In the Secret World. Cool.
But in addition to that, they've also opened the British Museum of the Occult, which the outer edifice of that has been in there since day one. It's just outside of Templar Hall in London, and they finally opened it up.
Been able to go in there in game?
No, it's just been like a closed door sort of thing, nothing beyond. And now it's like a set of doors you can open up to your own instance, and you get to go around collecting more lore. And I love that. Even people that hate the combat system for the Secret World praise its lore and its setting.
Oh yeah.
Like if there was a game that was demanding a tabletop version of itself, I think the Secret World has got to be at least in top 3. Because even the people that hate the game, hate having to play it, love the setting. They love the reading about it. So that's where it really shines by every account. So there's more lore. Yay! I get to learn more stuff about all the monsters I've been killing. And as it turns out, I've killed 5,000 zombies. So like, woo! I have literally taken out like entire small town worth of zombies. But not all at once, because I'm only one immortal person. But yeah, you go around, you open up various wings of the museum that correspond to different areas and zones you've been in. And by spending a lot of action points and the PAX general, currency, you can get yourself pedestals to put, like holograms of the various monsters you fight. Mm-hmm. According to the calculations some people have done, in order to take the museum from base start to getting everything maxed out, because you can get the pedestal and then you got your image, and that's your classic, and then you can upgrade it 2 to 3 more times at increasing costs for different poses and other things, and because unlocking the various poses can get you stuff you can buy. Various things like you get the Sasquatch at its Paragon level. You can get yourself a little Sasquatch pet that'll follow you around.
No, nice.
Yeah, it'll be nice and fun. But with that, all unlocked, it's going to take 14 months, and that's every day a lot of work to qualify as the 200 action points per day. That said, every once in a while they do have like an AP weekend, as they call it, where your action points increase at 3 times the amount, where instead of getting 1 point, you gain 3. And I've been on that weekend, and oh my goodness, it was just like I was getting everything on that. It's like, I go around adventuring, and all of a sudden I got to spend all these points. So how can I hold all these points? I got to spend them on something I've maxed out. So yeah, with some of those in place, and you can buy like AP boosts in the store if you want to spend a little cash on it. You could probably knock it down by a significant amount, depending on your frequency of playing. I don't expect to get the entire thing, maxed out anywhere soon. I'm just having fun finding the lore, spending the stuff, and getting up these images to enjoy it. And that's what I want. It gives me something more to do, another reason to go back and explore the areas I've already been in and have more fun. And I'm a sucker for the lore. But as an odd note, because I've been killing so many zombies and I've been looking at this stuff here, I got thinking about zombies. And the various different types of zombies. Because, zombies is like a 9-part lore, which is a fairly massive addition of lore. Most of them are like 3 or 4 bits. This is a 9 stack of info in the game.
Okay.
And some of them you only get the lore by killing a certain type of zombie. So they've got these giant hulking zombies. I kill one. Oh, hey, there's a lore drop. So I go and I read it, and yay! And then it occurs to me, it's like, yeah, they got like giant hulked out zombies. Which I guess doesn't make a lot of sense until you realize it never made much sense to begin with. A zombie is an inert, thing. It's a corpse. That's just really what it is. I mean, it's not like it's alive, right?
Okay. I mean, depending if you're talking about this particular setting.
Yes, in this particular setting, they're not, technically living zombies. They are still.
They're reanimated dead flesh.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, so they're inert. I mean, even one guy says that in one of the cutscenes. They are inert, as in they're dead. They're not biologically active, but they can still move. But there's one area where they're getting like poisoned by an evil it's just called filth is what it's called. Okay. And this thing is changing them into becoming huge, like the Hulk, like the Incredible Hulk sort of Moroid Rager sort of thing. And it's like, oh, how does that work? And I was like, well, it didn't make sense. But then again, like an inert body moving around on its own volition doesn't make a lot of sense that way either. So just roll with it, right? And so I've been thinking about that, and so I was looking up the various types of zombies in other areas. Like I was looking back into 2nd edition D&D because they had a lot of good variations on zombies there, and I noticed zombies are immune to cold damage. And that's a specific thing about it was that zombies are immune to mind affecting charms and sleeps. Given that they're not intelligent, I guess that makes sense. And
okay.
It's like, and us with most undead immune to cold damage. I'm like, I don't recall that. That's just not a fact I recall. Like most undead creatures immune to cold damage.
Yeah, I think it depends on the edition.
And that's the thing, is because I've been playing an awful lot in 3rd edition, but I don't recall that for 2nd edition. So before we started the podcast, I was flipping through the monster manual, or the monsters compendium. Sorry, it was the 2nd edition stuff, and I'm looking, and immune to cold. Immune to cold, half damage from cold, immune to cold. It's like, wow, I did not see that. I played 2nd edition for years, and I did not pick that point up. And it's only now when I'm at such a level where I'm able to study and analyze at much higher rates that I'm able to find these trends and actually analyze them. So it's like, ooh.
Okay.
So it's like, ooh, I can see myself as being a higher level than when I first accessed these books.
I guess it makes sense, because fire will burn anything, even objects. In theory, I guess.
Well, that is the thing, it's like what do you do against a supernatural creature in most real world lore? Burn it. When in doubt, burn it. Burning almost always works.
Yeah, and the cold magic is not as common.
Well, that's the thing is, I suppose you can connect it to the chill of the grave, sort of line, so that yes, of course they wind up being immune to cold damage because they all have the chill of the grave about them.
Yeah.
I guess from a thematic standpoint, it's not a bad way to go about it. So unless it's a fiery undead creature, it's going to have some sort of immunity to cold. Fiery undead are usually immune to fire because they're already on fire. More fire's not going to hurt them. It's a fire thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to throw a fireball at a fire dragon and see what goes on there, man. No. And it's nice to see that they had at least some sense of continuity in Dungeons and Dragons in 2nd edition, because a lot of it was compiled stuff. Like there's a lot of Ravenloft things in there. There's a lot of various setting related things in there that are just it does create a hodgepodge sort of melange effect where there's not really any consistency amongst things.
Sure.
That they've done a lot better job of in following editions. 3rd edition, just by being undead gave you certain immunities. So all undead would have this by default of being undead. In this, you don't always need to state it. Just remind people, undead immunities. Mm-hmm. Instead of having to put it every dang time. And that's the thing I've noticed, is some undead don't follow these sorts of rules. Some undead, it had no mention in that they were immune to mind affecting and compulsion sort of things.
Okay, yeah.
So it's not a perfect sort of system, but it's nice to see that level of continuity amongst the various different groups of undead. So it was nice to see and learn. It's just a nice little, I never got this way back in the day when I was first playing around. So woo.
Okay, cool.
But it does make me wonder, like what other sort of things they could do to keep that theme sort of going. Like if undead are just generally immune to cold, then how could you work that with the other groups? Like, is there any other group where you could make a statement about that? I say, undead are generally immune to cold effects. Okay, fair. That's that's a thing. Is there any other group of creatures you think you could make an argument about where that also applies?
Just off the top of my... I mean, oozes and constructs don't have minds.
So they'd be immune to like mental effects. Same as the undead that way.
Yeah, this is something we know about, you know...
Well, what about intelligent oozes?
Are there intelligent oozes?
It very infrequently is ever shown, but they do pop up from time to time throughout the editions.
Yeah. I've always, like, I've gone back and forth on this because, like, it is the gamist sort of way of looking at things to have every member of this particular group to have the same sort of bucket load of stats. And then I also, at the same time, say, okay, but I want to, like, there's always an exception. There's an intelligent ooze. There's a bodiless undead that's, I don't know, actually has a beating heart for some reason, just supernaturally, and that's its weakness.
It makes real good lore sense, sort of thing.
Yeah, just for the backstory of the character, of the creature, you make an exception. So, yeah, I guess I'd go with sort of I would go with have some general rules.
I do recall at the beginning of 3rd edition they released a monster, and I think it was a 1-2 level 2-hit die monster in the Dragon magazine, where it evolved. It would start off as one type of undead, and then as it aged or matured, it had a second one. So you'd actually have an undead that had like various, like growing estates, sort of thing. Kind of like the way you could make an argument that the ghoul becomes a ghast, and thus they can technically grow up. Despite being dead, they can still grow.
What they did in 4th edition, and I think they borrowed this from Magic the Gathering, is that instead of having just one creature type, it was sort of keywords, or a creature type was, could be keywords. You could be as many creature types as you wanted. Like you could be elf, soldier,
they technically
mage.
did that in 3rd edition too. Before the monster manual was released, there was stuff like the Scarred Lands setting that beat them to the punch and released a monster, the creature collection instead of the monster manual before, based on what they could find. And then you did have weird things like undead oozes.
Yeah, and in theory, like, that's perfectly fine. It just has, the immunities of both, and, like, a spell that targets undead, targets this creature. A spell that targets oozes also targets this creature. That's how Magic the Gathering works. That's how 4th edition was kind of like that. They had keywords. 5th edition, I think, is back more to creature types. Like, I think they generally have one creature type each.
But you can make, it's not too hard to make a thing stating that, like, despite being, like, undead, this creature still is affected as though it were an ooze, because it's like an ooze as well. It's just like a necrotic ooze.
Yeah. And, like, it used to be you'd see occasionally write-ups from developers in D&D. They would say, okay, if you're creating a monster, here's the questions you need to ask about your new monster, about which creature type category it falls into. And it gives you, is it living or dead, etc.
Like stuff like Nerul, the Reaper, and those other death gods. They weren't dead themselves, so they don't qualify as being undead. They qualify as being outsiders, even though they will also have undead-like traits.
Yeah, and that was a creature type, was outsider. I don't know if they stuck with outsider at this time. Or like in the current edition of D&D, I don't know if they have outsiders in particular. I think
I think it qualifies as a good category of generic creatures for the purpose of our conversation, at least.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, and like at some point I wanted to call them Titans, and just say that sort of anything that's sort of angel, demon related, or anything that like lives on another plane. That's how, lore-wise, they're all related to the Titans, and that...
Something less generic than outsider would have been appreciated.
Yeah, but also Titan is also... it's another monster in the monster manual. At some point, I think they called it an outsider also, because it's from another plane.
Yeah.
But it could be that just that's one particular giant type of Titan that's,
Well, the thing is it was effectively you had your gods, your demigods, and then your rank 0 gods, and then you had Titan, which was just kind of like a rank -1, anti-god, pseudo-god sort of thing. Mm-hmm. They were very close. They were described as being closer to the wellspring of life than most creations, but they weren't divine. So I guess they occupy something towards like the same role as the archfiends and the demon lords.
I would say something like that.
Which is nice to have a counterpart in that thing.
Or just have have a category that is sort of not related to power necessarily, but more related to just sort of origin, in that, like, oh, this is a sort of race of spiritual beings that eventually split into different races according to alignment and so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it could have worked either way, and that's the thing. So long as it tells the right story, I think it works out very well either way. So then we could work with these titans instead of outsiders. We'll call them the titans and all that. Could you see them having like a standard stat thing of like their immunities or at least resistances too?
Well, yeah, and that also happened in D&D. Is like, oh, we'll invent a new, like, well, not new, but we'll update the Yugolos for 3rd edition, and we'll just give them 3 or 4. It seems like almost randomly selected just immunities. Like, oh, they have electricity, cold, fire.
That was due to historical things for whatever reasons.
Yeah.
Still fairly random, but at least it has a historical precedent in 3rd edition. It's like, well, they've always been immune. That's kind of how it goes.
Sure, and like whenever I make a new like monster, sometimes I am very tempted to do that, to just give it a set of immunities that both set it apart from other creatures, so that, okay, a lot of creatures, nobody's immune to Sonic, like I'll make mine immune to Sonic, but there's sort of a reason why, because Sonic is not that common of a spell, and other.
Well, and clearly you need my Sonic Elementals to start wrecking havoc, so the PCs will start using and countering.
But then is that how you want to create your world? Do you want to? Is it an arms race? Is it like, okay, we'll add in Sonic spells, now add in Sonic monsters, Sonic resistances? Do you want to do that?
It's nice to get that whole thing featured. Keep it well rounded. Because there's some nice things you could do. Thematically with like spells. Thunderclap, when you create like a wave sort of thing of Sonic damage.
I agree. It's a good way to mine for new ideas, for new spells. Yes, but it's also. It's a little bit. Well, what
if you redid the Bard? So the Bard did Sonic damage instead of like having their spells. They were more like a warlock. They could do like targeted like Sonic damage.
Well, because sometimes yes, but also the danger with that is that your Bard just impinges on your wizard's territory, and it's just, this is just a wizard.
They've been impinging on wizard territory for about 4 editions right now. This is not exactly a new thing for them.
I would say if you really want to make your Bard unique, you want to go in as bardy a direction as you can, and not have them just being spell slingers, but have them being influencers and storytellers and
that would work for a much more
makers.
like nuanced campaign. But if you want to do something like a like a hack and slash campaign, then that Bard is going to be a liability in a lot of situations. You're going to want to have something like a what's the thing is the Bards I'm thinking of would be very nicely pictured in the Kung Fu Hustle movie.
Yeah.
Where the music can literally chop a person's head off with a sharp note.
Yeah, but maybe that isn't a bard. Maybe that's a sound wizard or a music wizard. Like that's what I'm saying.
That's what people have called bards before.
I guess.
Yeah. So you could wind up with like just a redone bard for the purposes of that more hack and slash campaign, where you really don't need to charm the creature because you're going to have to wind up killing it, sort of thing.
Possibly, or you could just drop the bard and say, you don't need
no bards. This Come on, guys, we're hacking.
If you want to be somebody magical and charismatic, we have a sorcerer.
You could be a necromancer. They're kind of charismatic, but only towards the dead. Yeah. I mean, most people can't convince the dead to get up and fight for them, so
The other problem with that too is that if you try and fill every single niche. Hopefully you're more creative about it, but what can sometimes happen is like, here's Fireball, and here's Cold Ball, and here's Sonic Ball, and here's like
I won't lie,
is a waste of
that
paper.
Is one of the things I would like to have seen a little bit more different done across editions, is make the spells of different energy types feel different. Mm-hmm. It was the same with I was told back when 3rd edition was coming out, it would feel different to attack with a trident than it would with like a broadsword. So mm-hmm. I was picturing like different styles where like a trident would actually be more beneficial in certain circumstances, and that never really panned out like I was imagining.
I suppose. I mean, in the end, you're still rolling dice and
Yeah.
stuff. So,
but it wasn't even like a tactical situation where like, oh, you got to drop your broadsword and pick up the trident, man. The trident's going to be the one for you right now.
Well, and also like this goes to the thing about role playing. If what makes it great is that you can describe things and you can add flavor. So in a lot of ways, it's up to the DM because a goblin can be exactly the same as a kobold or any other sort of humanoid.
One hit die humanoid monster.
Yeah, and I know in different D&D versions they've tried to be like, oh well, this one gets an extra move after it attacks, and this one can dodge the special, and they give them little things that make them a bit different.
Well, that's why I've always liked kobolds, is they're not too much to them hit point wise, but it's called devious creatures. So when you're fighting in a kobold area, especially on their terms, be prepared for traps. And it does add to a tactical scenario. Like if you haven't cleaned the room of traps, you have to be very careful about how you're moving and where you're fighting.
Yeah, because they have a bit of lore with them. A little bit of, or maybe pseudo-lore. So that's
the thing. It's you get the kobolds on a retreat, but they're not really retreating because you're winning. They're retreating because they need you to step 5 spaces forward so they can pull the lever, and there goes the pit trap underneath you.
Yeah, and this is what...
And that adds to a tactic. That's a fight you will remember. You remember when that you fell 30 feet onto the those dung-infested spikes? Because the kobolds, totally tricked you on that one, Dave. It's like, oh, don't even remind me. Oh my God, they got me bad.
Yeah, it happened. But the other thing, what you need in D&D is just a good imagination, both DMs and players, but probably DMs mostly, to be able to describe exactly what you're fighting, whether it's goblins or some variation on that, and just be able to really put your players in the situation where it's not just stats, and it's not just these goblins have an extra move. It's like they're
they feel different. Well, that's the thing. That's one of the things I liked about my reading for the Warhammer was that the goblins won't attack unless they're pretty much doubling your numbers, and even then they retreat when things go bad. So in that case, if you're going to be fighting the goblins, you're going to be fighting a lot of goblins. You're not going to be encountering 2 to 4 goblins. You're going to be encountering 5 to 20 goblins at a time, and if they start losing, you can bet the guys in the back are going to start running away. You have no element of surprise now, and they will attack again in large numbers when they think they can get you.
Yeah.
And that's why it'll feel different, because you're not just okay, move up to this spot here and then attack until they're dead and then move on to the next one. They will flee. They have tactics, cowardly though they may be.
Yeah. And the other thing, D&D, everyone's they try to insert a little bit of flavor, spells have material components. In 3rd edition, every spell is listed with what,
Most of them in 2nd edition had it too. It just wasn't put in the same sort of, this is your component. It was just
tells
put in
you exactly what the wizard is pulling out of his bag to cast this spell. But I don't think in 3rd edition, most players don't mention it. The DM doesn't.
Well, it wasn't as big a thing in 3rd edition because you could just, spend 2 gold for a spell component pouch and ignore it.
Yeah, and that's sort of the rule expressly in the rule book says, well, you just have what you need.
Yeah.
And then I think,
unless it costs money. Whereas
right,
I could get one of my books off the shelf and I can show you the cost for each spell you had to cast. And I'm kind of happy they did away with that sort of thing as to how much it would cost to find a small ball of guano and sulfur to roll up together to throw for your fireball spells. Because if there's one thing that marked wizards is that it was really expensive to be one. To copy those spells it's getting cheaper as editions go on, but it was really, really expensive to copy. Yeah. And thus, in addition to becoming more powerful, you had to spend a lot of money to get that versatility in there. Which is why they say, oh yeah, wizard is a top tier class. It's got huge versatility. It's like, yeah, because you got to spend extra money on it. It's not like the warrior has to switch out to a different plate armor every second fight. Just to match up the tactics right.
Well, sometimes, depending, if you're a high enough level, you might be going to different planes. You're like, I need my cold resistance armor.
But you're not going to have to buy that in most cases. You'll wind up finding it, sort of thing. Wizards will still have to get it in their spellbook, will have to find the spellbook or the spell scroll and then copy it in at the cost of 100 gold pieces a page. And I'll tell you this, the spells have gotten a lot thinner as the editions go on, because it used to be very, very long spells. So it's something like 2,000 gold almost just to write a 9th level spell into the spell book. And even then, there was a chance you couldn't do it, and you lose all your, the cost on it. So it's like, there goes your money, wizard boy. Welcome to being poor forever. So I'm kind of happy they made it a little bit more cost-effective just to be a wizard, even if most people didn't seem to follow those rules.
Yeah.
Say Livy.
All right.
But that's the thing is, I would like to see a little bit more tactical feel difference or thing. Like if you're casting a fire spell, there's a chance of things staying on fire. The fire doesn't go away immediately. If your cold spell would wind up potentially, like slowing creatures down as they're frosty, and shivering, and the ice is frozen on them. They have to break free.
Yeah.
Sonic one would deafen them, sort of thing. So they would wind up, like not being able to hear properly, and all effects done with that. That way, it would feel like you could have your Sonic Ball, Cold Ball, and Fireball, and they would still feel different. Which is one of the things I really did like about Diablo, the series, is that, you, especially with the second one, where I played a lot of, you could freeze a creature with your cold spells, and they would slow down.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Cool.
And there's a chance if you kill them while they're frozen that they shatter. So, like, a corpse-raising person, be it friend or foe, would be unable to make use of that. Because it's like, dude, you shattered it. It's frozen. It's gone. No corpse left behind. Which is actually the same line, but with a different intent for the Necromancer. No corpse left behind. But, so, that's the thing, is sometimes it just makes just little things to change up. Get a little extra effect on there to make it different. But I suppose this potpourri episode has gone on a little over. We're at 95 minutes.
All right. I haven't mentioned our social media, so...
Yeah, we've talked about people contacting us. How can they do so, Josh?
Yeah, I guess. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/The Simulationist. You can comment on there, write your little comments. They appear on the left of the page if you just start something brand new, or you can comment under each episode as it comes up and do it that way.
And we're okay with either.
That's right. And you can converse with other fans, all of our wonderful... fans who are not really talking, but hey, you could be the first. I guess we have occasionally one or two people comment, but not really many.
I'm just happy we don't have stupid people saying stupid things on there.
Well, yeah, that is something.
I'm happy to say that we have intelligent people because they're not saying stupid things. That must be true, right? My logic is undeniable.
Sure, yeah. We're on iTunes. iTunes, I guess you just type this into the iTunes store and we'll find The Simulationist. You can subscribe to us there and write like a review if you feel like. That would help us out a lot. And I'm on Twitter at Josh_Trelaffin, TRESLAFFIN, because I am also a comedian, and you can catch me at local Victoria comedy shows from time to time.
You are doing the Yuck Yuck Sunday nights now?
Next Sunday I am, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which is why we've shifted over to a Monday, Tuesday sort of recording time.
Yeah, we're recording on Tuesday or Monday, so this show will come out on Wednesday or Tuesday, depending. Still keeping up every week. What else? Social, tell a friend in real life. We are on Patreon. Also type us in The Simulationist on Patreon.
Nothing's required, of course, to listen to us, but if you get a hold of a windfall and want to pay for batteries, we would not say no.
That's right. I think that's about everything. Final thoughts?
It's good to have that sense of continuity amongst things, so that when you're encountering, say, trolls, you're going to want to use fire and acid against them, because their regeneration means fire and acid is a thing. And that's what makes it feel like it's a D&D campaign. Oh, it's a troll. Break out the fire and acid stuff. And it makes you, like, why else would a mid-level party even need, like, alchemist fire or, like, vials of acid? Because they usually have spells that are more potent than that, but you can scare things away, by, throw it and whip it at them to prevent, the regeneration of them. It's a very good thing. I mean, it makes the right feel. That's how you know you're in that kind of game. Even if it doesn't always make a lot of sense, so long as it has that continuity of itself there. It's a regenerating creature, fire and acid, fire and acid. If you encounter a regenerating creature that you have to freeze or blast with sonic waves in order to get it, it's not going to feel the same way. It's going to be like, oh yeah, you guys just switched up to make certain we were off our guard. How hackneyed is that? So I do appreciate that, even though I also am a fan of like things progressing and changing as time goes on. So I think so. Like if you encounter like if you're a regenerate creature and you encounter a lot of people throwing fireballs and acid flasks at you, maybe you want to invest in like some well, let's see. I guess what's the opposite? Like some base powders to sprinkle on yourself so that the acid can be neutralized.
Baking soda, or
Yeah. The trolls go raiding the baking soda factories just to help make sure they can't be kept on fire, acid for too long.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, and of course, there's always the way to cheat on that. I do recall the concept of the half fire elemental troll with a ring of acid resistance, and that just being like, wow, that is so incredibly horribly cheap. I want to play it. I want to play it too. Just have some fun with it, right? See how badly you can do that.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert: you can still drown them. If you have a good enough constitution and a good enough grapple on your grapple checks, you can drown a troll.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as they need to breathe. I sadly have never had the opportunity to drown a troll in order to prove that I don't need to fire acid to succeed against this beast. It's on my bucket list, so to speak. One day.
All right.
One day.
That's all good.
Well, can you see? Like the hero and the monster fall off the boat, sort of thing. And they go down there. And then only the hero comes up, and the troll. I guess the troll comes up. Just its back, side. It's just floating. Like a dead goldfish.
Yeah, I want to say that's a Beowulf thing, but I think in Beowulf Grendel lived underwater, so
yeah,
you might have been immune to drowning. But Beowulf ripped off his arm. So
I've yet to do that in a campaign as well. I suppose it would be kind of nice to beat somebody around with their own arm, given the chance. I don't see a huge desire to do that as drowning a troll. Just, drowning a troll is kind of like getting those 10 poison counters in Magic the Gathering back in the day. It was a victory condition, but very few people ever tried it and succeeded at it, so it was an extra kind of like feather in your cap if you managed to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right.
But yeah. So yes, that's been one more iteration of the Simulationist.
It's been a podcast. I've been Josh 11.
I've been Ryan Kirkby. See you again next week.
Good night.